Betsy Thompson. This is Sharon Brown. I'd like to invite you to join us in Lesson 4 of a 10-week series of lessons on overcoming codependency, behaviors, a faith and values approach. And really, this series, more than overcoming the behavior, it is learning about the behavior, becoming aware of what it is, and being educated about it so you can go on into your own recovery. Today we're going to talk about denial. Our last lesson was on control. And Sharon, it was so enlightening to understand how important controlling is to keep codependency behavior going, how hard we have to work at it. And to tell you how important it is, let me tell you a little story about a woman who wanted her husband to quit smoking, and he had smoked for 30 years. And the more she said about it, the more he was determined to smoke. And she realized through the lessons on control that was his problem, that was his issue. And so as hard as it was for her, she tried to keep quiet. She did let him know how she felt about it, that she worried about his health. She didn't want to see him die from smoking. She expressed her feelings about it, and then she let it go. And at times she wanted to take over and make him do it, and she just kept remembering the lessons on control, and she let it go. And one day, on his own, he decided to quit smoking. And he did it on his own with no help from her, with no controlling on her part. And she felt so good about it because she had no guilt. He had no resentment towards her. And this is the only way that we can deal in our relationships, is to let our partners live their own lives and not try to make them do what we want them to do. And we get into controlling so much and we think, how could we have done that? How could we have tried to control so many people and so many things? And it looks like we would have known what we were doing. Well, the way that we can stay in that control for so many years is denial helps us. We're going to talk about denial being the friend and enemy of codependency. Control and denial go hand in hand. We are in total denial of our controlling behavior. We could not do it if we really knew what we were doing. So the more that we deny it, the more controlling we become, and the more controlling we become, the deeper we go into denial. And then we find ourselves in a vicious circle which has no escape unless we break through our denial and find out why we are doing the controlling, how we're doing the controlling, and how we can stop.
Betsy, how can we get into control? Into denial?
Denial comes automatically. Our lives get so out of control because we're trying to control everybody else's lives that the only way we can deal with all of this dysfunction is to go into denial. Denial is part of the dysfunctional behavior of codependency. One reason that we do all this controlling is because in a dysfunctional family there is always a shared denial of reality. And so we learned as children to deny problems, to not face reality, and we grow up doing that, and that gets us into all of this controlling behavior.
Is it normal for a person to get into denial when they come from a dysfunctional family?
It is normal. It's a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. It's the only way that we could have survived in that family. And so we grow up with those same coping techniques, but through these series we can learn to break that. One way that children get into denial is when they're little is, for instance, if mom and dad are having trouble at home and it's very obvious they're having trouble and they're fighting, and yet the children are told everything's fine, don't worry about it, nothing's wrong. And then when the family breaks up, the children are confused and mixed up, and they're saying all that time, mom and dad said nothing was wrong, and yet something was wrong the whole time. And so they may grow up thinking, when things are wrong, tell yourself everything's going to be okay.
Oh, so it's like they're not facing reality?
Right. They're not allowed to face reality, and they're taught that as children, carry that over in their adulthood. And so if we grow up habitually practicing denial and control, we will be drawn into situations demanding those traits. In other words, as adults, we will be drawn to situations where we can become controlling and where we can go deeper into denial to stay in that situation. One reason, because that's the only thing that feels normal to us.
Okay, I know earlier you said control and denial goes hand in hand.
The only way that we can stay in all that controlling behavior is to deny that we're doing it. And that makes us become even more controlling to keep the denial going. And it becomes a vicious circle. Denial, by keeping one out of touch with the reality of their circumstances and their feelings about those circumstances, will lead them into relationships fraught with difficulty. And so it leads us into relationships that won't work, into relationships that will demand control and denial and keep it going. And we go back to feelings again, to getting in touch with our feelings. We are denying how bad the circumstances that we're in really are, and we're not allowing ourselves to feel our feelings about those circumstances. And so we keep that vicious circle of control and denial going.
Oh, does a person go into denial because facing the truth is too painful?
It would be so painful, they fear that they could not deal with it. And in a lot of cases, they may not be able to deal with it without professional help. They will put all their energies into helping, which is really controlling, in order to make the situation more tolerable, or to try to make it more tolerable, all the while denying how bad it really is. Denial feeds the need to control, and the inevitable failure to control feeds the need to deny. And so it just goes on and on and on.
Okay, like a cycle.
It's a vicious cycle.
Okay.
Until things get so bad that you start seeking some answers and you start looking for ways to improve, and you get into the recovery information. Now, all of this controlling and denial is not a choice on one's part. No one uses denial in a conscious effort to tune out reality, to stop registering accurately what others are saying and doing, to not feel their own emotions. They would not do this if they were aware of what was going on.
Oh, so you saying they're not aware of what they're doing?
No, they're in total denial about it. And it happens as we struggle to provide protection from overwhelming conflicts and painful situations. And so the denial cancels out information and input that is too painful. Now, it's normal for anyone in a very, very uncomfortable situation to seek control of it to some degree. This natural reaction becomes exaggerated in members of an unhealthy family because there's just so much pain in that family.
Okay, unhealthy family, is that the same as dysfunctional?
That is the dysfunctional family. Now, denial can be a friend, so we don't want to totally put denial down.
Really? How can it become a friend?
Melody Beattie, in her book, The Language of Letting Go, shares her experiences with denial with us. She states, "I have been recovering many years. I've used denial many times. It has been a defense, a survival device, a coping behavior, and at times," she says, "almost my undoing. It has been both a friend and an enemy." And she tells us, "When I was a child, I used denial to protect myself and my family. I protected myself from seeing things too painful to see and feelings too overwhelming to feel. Denying got me safely through many traumatic situations when I had no other resources for survival."
Okay, what does she mean by she didn't have any other resources?
As a child, she was in situations that were so painful, but nobody had taught her how to survive these painful situations.
Okay.
And so these times of denial got her through that until she got to a point in her life that she could deal with it and think about what was happening and work through it and realize that she was grateful for denial to have just got her through that time, but she couldn't continue using denial throughout the rest of her life. And be aware that for many reasons, we have become experts at using the tool of denial to make reality more tolerable. We have learned well how to stop the pain caused by reality, but not by changing our circumstances, but by pretending our circumstances are something other than what they are.
And that can hurt us.
In the long run, it is very, very destructive. Over the long haul, we cannot keep doing that. It's okay for a time. It works for a time. But it is okay. Don't be too hard on yourself, because all of that time, while one part of you was busy creating a fantasy reality, just to get you through those circumstances, the other part of you went to work on accepting the truth. And so now it's time to find courage. Face the truth. Let it sink gently in. But don't force yourself to face things that are too hard to face right now. Do it slowly, do it with help, and do it gently.
But once you face it, it will help you.
It will help you.
Okay.
And it will help rid you of all of those fears.
Okay.
And she does such a beautiful job of sharing this with us, and so many people can identify with this kind of thing as they read her readings. They remember when they were children and how they had to use denial to get through family situations. And, you know, sometimes you can think back and you can say, you know, I knew the whole time, but I just didn't know what to do about it. And so while a part of us was in denial, a part of us was just looking for an opportunity to come out of the denial and to find a way to face reality. And Melody tells us, eventually I began to recover. I had a glimpse of awareness about my pain, my feelings, my behaviors. I began to see myself and the world as they were. And she tells us, she doesn't say, I recovered, I got over it, got rid of all the garbage overnight. She says, I got a glimpse of awareness. Recovery is a lifelong journey.
Okay, it's like a slow process.
Very slow process. We recover, we fall back, we get up, we go forward again. She says, there was so much denial from my past that had the blanket of denial, been entirely ripped from me, I would have died from the shock of exposure. And we can think back on circumstances of our lives and we think, I should have done better, I could have done better, I should have faced the truth. But we can get comfort from this and we can think, well, maybe not. Maybe things were going along just like they were supposed to. Maybe I would have died from the shock. It might just have been too much for me. Maybe now is the time to get into recovery and to think back on these things and work through some of them. She says, I needed to embrace remembrances, awarenesses, and healing gently, gradually. And she says, life participated in this process with me. And I love her saying that she says, life is a gentle teacher. And if we let it, life can be our teacher all of our life. We can learn something from everything that's happened to us in our lives, no matter how bad they were, no matter how tragic they were. Sometimes, if we can say nothing more than, I learned something from that, that can be the good that came from it.
Okay.
And she says, as I recovered, I was brought to the incidents and people I needed in order to remind me of what I was still denying, to tell me where I required more healing from my past, as I could handle these insights. And if we look at recovery like this, it can help us so much, and it can help us forward on the road to recovery as we just gently let God take us to the incidents and the people that we need when we're ready for it, and not try to force recovery and not try to push it on ourselves and expect too much from ourselves.
Okay, so some people are not, some people get over things quicker than others.
Yes,
okay.
absolutely. Your recovery is your own. Nobody can tell you you're not doing it right, you're not doing it fast enough.
Okay.
Everybody has their own road to travel.
Okay, so it's when you are ready.
Yes.
And will you know it?
But you will know it.
Okay.
You will know when you're ready. Nobody can tell you that. But we've talked about the good part of denial. Denial has helped us up to this point, but denial can be an enemy. And again, Melody Beattie teaches us this. She says the negative aspect of using denial was that I lost touch with myself and my feelings. I became able to participate in harmful situations without even knowing I was hurting. We can
Okay.
probably all look back and remember times that we just hung in very painful situations and shut down our feelings.
Okay, so you're saying she's not feeling her feelings at one time in her life?
She looked back and realized that when she let denial go on too long, she became able to participate in harmful situations without realizing it till she looked back over it. She says, I was able to tolerate a great deal of pain and abuse without the foggiest notion that it was abnormal. And I learned to participate in my own abuse by staying in it and not taking measures to get out of it. Denial protected me from pain, but it also rendered me blind to my feelings, my needs, and myself. It was like a thick blanket that covered and smothered me. Denial is fertile breeding ground for behaviors we call controlling, focusing on others, and neglecting ourselves, and this is codependency. And this is the bad side of denial. Illness and compulsive or addictive behaviors can emerge during denial. Denial can be confusing because it resembles sleeping. We're not really aware we're doing it until we're done doing it, till we look back over it. Forcing ourselves or anyone else, think about that, forcing someone else to come out of denial and to face the truth usually doesn't help. We won't face facts until we're ready, and neither will anyone else. This is the hardest lesson for a codependent to learn. We can sometimes accept all this about ourselves, but we want to run away from this class and find somebody that is in so much denial and jerk them into reality.
Okay, and that's like we want to help others.
And we still are in the helping, controlling
Okay.
mode. We cannot do that. It will not help others until they're ready. We can give them this information, that would be great, but we cannot make them face facts until they're ready. We may admit to the truth about our situation for a moment, but we won't let ourselves know the full truth until we are ready. Until we feel safe and secure and prepared enough to deal and cope with it. What we need to do is get all this information and then be ready for when the time is right for us, and slowly we can use it.
Betsy, how do we break through the prison of denial?
Well, again, Melody Beattie gives us some good ways to do that. She tells us, I still use and break through denial as needed. When the winds of change blow through, upsetting a familiar structure and preparing me for the new, I pick up my blanket and hide for a while. Sometimes when someone I love has a problem, I hide under the blanket. And she says, momentarily memories emerge of things denied, memories that need to be remembered and felt and accepted, so I can continue to become healed and strong and healthy.
Oh, so she's dealing with her feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She doesn't come down too hard on herself when she needs to use denial to get through real difficult situations. And she says things come to her mind that she would not have remembered at any other time. And maybe it was necessary to use denial a little bit for a short time to help her deal with some things from the past. And she says sometimes these things happen so she can continue to become healed and strong and healthy. And she says, sometimes I feel ashamed about how long it takes me to struggle through to acceptance of reality. She says, I feel embarrassed when I find myself again clouded by the fog of denial. But she has learned this. As we move forward in our recovery process, we realize that these experiences of relapse and of going back into denial and coming out are connected. Not a mistake, but an important part of healing. And she says we may sometimes use denial to get through some rough spots, remembering that denial is a friend and an enemy. So we just want to understand denial, understand it can help us at times, understand that we don't want to use it as a way of coping in life. And she says stay on the alert for danger signals.
What are some of the danger signals?
When we get cloudy, confused feelings, those are those old codependent feelings, and we want to be on the alert that we may be tempted to slip into denial. Sluggish energy, feeling compulsive, running too hard or fast, avoiding support mechanisms. I have a friend that shared with me in one of her support groups. They use the letters HALT, halt, to help them stop and think, oops, I'm risking using denial again.
Okay.
They say never let yourself get too hungry, too angry, too lonely, or too tired, because when you do, denial can slip in and start to take over. We have written a children's story to share with our children on denial, and we call it Pretending Nothing's Wrong, because that's what denial is. It's pretending everything's okay when it's not, and it's not facing reality. We're going to join Kevin's Corner in just a minute and read the story with them. And I want to thank you for joining us, and for more information on this series, write to We Are Not Alone, 185 Anthest Drive, Nashville, Tennessee, and join us the next time for our next lesson. Thank you for joining.
Hi, I'm Kevin. This is Kevin's Corner. These are my friends, Mario, Eric, and Corez. Today our story is Pretending Nothing's Wrong.
Thank you, Kevin. We're going to have a story about Jamie again. You know, all of us have had family problems at times, and we pretended like nothing was wrong. Well, we're going to talk about that today in our story. I have a new friend at school, Jamie told Mother. I really like him, but he acts so sad all the time. Everybody likes him, but we don't know why he hardly ever smiles and why he's so quiet. Jamie, answered Mother, one time when I was little, my family was having some problems at home, and I acted like your new friend is acting. I acted very shy and very quiet, and I hardly ever smiled because I was so busy pretending that everything was okay at home. I didn't know that it was okay to have problems at home. I didn't know that everyone has problems at home at some time or another. What kind of problems did you have at home, Mommy? Asked Jamie. Well, Jamie, my problem was that my mother was sick for a very long time, and I was afraid that she wasn't going to get well. She was not able to do any of the things at home that we always knew she would do, so we had to do these things for her. I became very sad and tried to pretend that this was not really happening, and that's when I started acting like your new friend. But my mother did finally get well, and everything got better. But there can be other kinds of problems. Someone in the family may be on drugs or acting in such a way as to keep everyone in the family upset. Sometimes problems at home stay with us when we go other places, and we try to pretend that nothing's wrong. when we try to pretend that nothing is wrong, but we really know something's wrong. This confuses us, and we don't feel good about ourselves when we do this. What can I do to help my new friend? Asked Jamie. There may not be anything you can do but be his friend, said Mother. But he can do something for himself. What? What? Said Jamie. He can find a grown-up to talk to about his problems at home. Sometimes the other family members are also pretending about the problems at home. So then he should try to find a grown-up at school or at church or someone else that will listen to him. If he does this, he might even be able to help his other family members quit pretending and face the problems at home so the whole family can share in their feelings about the problems. I'm glad to know what might be bothering my new friend, said Jamie. Now I will even be a better friend to him because I know he needs my friendship more than ever, said Jamie. I remember that Jesus said to always be kind to one another, and a friend loves at all times. Thank you, Mommy, for helping me understand my new friend. And now let's see what questions Sharon has.
Okay, Mario, why is it not good to pretend everything is fine when it is not?
Because it can cause mixed up feelings that stay with us when we leave home.
Okay, that's a good answer, Mario. Kevin, how can not pretending help other family members?
When they see you pretending, it may help them quit pretending.
Oh, that's good. Eric, what can you do when you see a friend who is having a problem at home?
Try to understand your friend.
Oh, that's a good
great.
answer. Yeah.
Thank you, kids, for coming to Kevin's Corner, and let us see your pictures. Hold them up for me. Ooh, looks great. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks for coming to Kevin's Corner. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.